Okay, so welcome today. This is second week on Microsoft Word. Today we're going to be covering the chapter called Word Create Flyers. The first thing you'll do is go to Fanshawe Online. You're going to download two pictures, Word03 Art Photo 1 and Word03 Art Photo 2. You're going to download but not open the file Word03_art classes, and you're going to open the file Word03_art. Once you have that open, you'll have the screen that you can see in front of you here, and we can get started. So today what we're going to be working through is inserting text and pictures from a file, resize and align a picture. We're going to take a look at tabs, so how you insert tabs into a document, and then we're going to take a look at tables and how you add and modify tables. So let's get started. The first thing I want to do is I'm going to turn off the navigation pane. It's not going to really help me today, and it'll give me more space on the screen to work with. And what we're going to do here is we're going to change our theme. So again, we've talked about themes a number of different times. In PowerPoint, the three themes were quite extensive. In Word, they're not quite as impactful as they are in PowerPoint, because you don't have placeholders and you don't have to worry about it doesn't have the format of the background colors. However, themes still do provide your color sets, so your theme colors, and it also provides your base fonts, so your heading font and your body font. Okay, so if I was to click here on my fonts, you can see at the top I have two theme fonts, Cambria for headings and Calibri for body. And if I was to click on pictures, or on font color, you can see that my color fonts run across. And again, remember, the first two, white and black, are always default, the same on every. And so then we go from grays across through whatever that is, a red, and at the very last is an orange. Okay. All right, so we're going to change our theme. So we're going to click on Design, and on the far left you can see Themes. And remember, when you open a presentation or open a Word document, it by default is going to use the Office font, the Office theme. So that's the very first one you can see here. As I move down through my document, I'm going to actually select Wisp down here at the very end. And when I do that, you can see now that if I go back to my Home tab, if I look at my color schemes, so where we used to have a orange at the last, now we have a green, and we have different colors. So this is now an orange and what have you. Now there may be a difference between your textbook colors, or the colors that you're showing here, and what the textbook is asking for. The text, for some reason, I believe that when they came up with Office 365, they changed the color scheme for the Wisp design, but it's immaterial. It's not going to make any changes in how we proceed with this. Okay, and it won't be a problem when your grader assignment, because I'll make sure that that doesn't happen. Okay, so with the theme font set to Wisp, we're now going to select the title. So remember, I said to select just a row. You're going to move your cursor to the left margin and click, and that will select the row. From here, we're going to change the font size to 26. And we're going to center it. So we're going to click here on Center to center that on my screen. Okay, so now we're going to insert one of our pictures. So I want you to position your cursor to the left of the wording that says the Art Center Gallery. And to add a picture, we're simply going to go and do as we did before. We're going to click on Insert, the picture that you downloaded. Now yours will probably be in Downloads. Mine is someplace else. I'm going to insert the picture Art Photo 1. And I'm going to click Insert. Now, notice that what happens here in Word or in PowerPoint, when you inserted a picture, it put it over top of what was currently on the screen. And the same thing happens with Excel. If you insert a picture in Excel, it'll put it over whatever's on the screen. However, in Word, it doesn't do that. In Word, when you insert a picture, it actually takes the text that's in the way and moves it. So it's like to make that picture fit on the page, you have to move what's currently on the page out of the way to allow that picture to go there. Now we're going to fix this later as we work through the assignment, but I just wanted you to be aware of how this works. Okay. And we're going to go down to the end here. So after this paragraph here, so just before the paragraph that says class fees are as follows. Oh, by the way, I want to make sure you have show hide turned on. Okay, again on the Home tab. Show hide is the kind of backwards P button here, so I'll turn it off and I'll turn it back on again. And again, that shows you all your paragraph markers and page breaks and what have you. So after the paragraph, the art show offers art classes, which is this paragraph right here. So I'm going to click on the end of that, and I'm going to add a new paragraph. So I'm simply going to hit enter. And now I'm going to insert the other Word document that you would have downloaded but not opened. And we're really no different here than we were with adding files from another PowerPoint presentation. You can do it in two ways. You could open the other Word document, copy, and paste. So that will work fine. In our case, we're going to use a different way. We're going to click on the Insert tab, and on the far right we're going to go to the options. So you can see in the text group there's things like text box, quick parts, and so on. We're going to click on the one that says Object, and you go down to the bottom and you're going to say Text from File. So it's going to ask you where your file is. Now in your case it's probably in your downloads. For my case it's here, it's on my USB stick. So I'm going to click on Art Classes and I'm going to click Insert. And that will simply take everything that's in that file and insert the document into my existing document. Sorry about that. If you wanted less than the whole document, you could do the copy and the paste. Okay, I'm going to get rid of that extra paragraph marker that was added, so I'm going to just hit delete so that you can see that you have the Art Center offers art classes, then you have your table, and you have a paragraph marker, and then you have the text class fees are as follows, or class fees are as follows. All right, I'm going to position my cursor to the left of class fees are as follows, and I'm going to insert the second picture. So I'm going to go back to my Insert tab, I'm going to click on Picture, and I'm going to insert art photo number 2. Now, that picture is too big to fit in the available space on page 1, so it simply automatically bumps it down to page 2. That's just word wrap. So anytime you have text and you're typing text into a Word document, when you hit the bottom of the page, it will automatically just jump you down to the next page. It's not the same as a page break, which we covered last week, and I'll refresh you on again today. So what I want to do is I want to actually shrink that picture down until it'll fit back on the first page. To do that, I'm going to grab one of the corner sizing handles. So any of the corner sizing handles will work. I'm going to click, and you can notice as I drag towards the middle, it shrinks the picture both on height and width. So again, I'm just going to click it until it jumps back to the first page. Okay. Now on the picture you can see we've talked about the sizing handles, which are the little circles on the corners in the middle. And again, remember, if you use a sizing handle from the middle, it will just adjust that one dimension, width or height. It won't, but the corner handles do both width and height. All right, I'm going to change the width to 1.75. So when I click on the picture, there's a new menu comes up called Picture Tools, and I'm going to click on Format. It should automatically go there, but just in case it doesn't, click on Format, and on the far right, change the width of the picture to 1.75. I can't just use the arrows. I'll have to actually type 1.75 to get it to be the size that I want it to be. All right, so what I want you to do is we're going to focus a little bit now on this box called Arrange, where I have Position and Wrap Text. Now Position is fairly new. They just added that in Office 2013. It's basically just a shortcut to do what we're going to do manually using the next menu option in that list, which is called Wrap Text. So what wrap text means is it simply does what it says. It's going to wrap the text around my picture in a particular way. So you can see right now it says it's in line with text. That means that my picture is there, and you can see the text is at the end of the picture and follows along. So the picture is in line with the text that I have. If you hover over top of Square, what Square does is it actually puts the picture in the middle of your text, and the text would wrap around it. If I was to move that picture a little bit to the right, some of the text would be on the left and some of it would be on the right. Tight puts the text at the top and the bottom of the picture. Through will actually put the text right through the picture. Top and bottom does that. Behind text will put the text behind the picture. In front of the text will put behind puts the picture behind the text, and in front of text puts the picture in front of the text, so you can't actually see it in this case. in everything that we're doing, we're always going to use square. Square allows you to click your picture and drag it as we did with PowerPoint to move pictures around on the screen. So I can actually click my picture and drag it around on the screen. You can see as I drag, I get these green lines. They're similar to what we saw in PowerPoint, so those are called your alignment guides. If those guides do not show, you can turn them on by going up to the Home tab or to the Format tab and make sure that you have a tick box beside Use Alignment Guides, which will turn them on. I just turned them off. I'm going to turn them back on again. All right, so I want this picture to be aligned with the right margin, so that's the green line that runs down the right hand side, and I want it to be aligned with that text, class fees are and follows, so that's the green line that comes just above the text. You'll also see a little picture of an anchor. Any picture in your document is going to be anchored to text. What the anchor says is that if for whatever reason the text or the picture moves to the next page, it will drag the other one with it. Because if you have an illustration with a heading or like a caption underneath the picture or above the picture, you don't want the picture to be on one page and the caption to be on a different one. So when you anchor a picture to text, it will simply mean that those two are treated as a single unit. Okay, so let's keep going here. Go back to the first picture, so the picture at the top, we're going to click on that. We want to change the width to 2. So I'm going to go up on the Format tab, type in a 2. Notice it changes both the height and the width. I'm going to set the text wrapping to square. And here you can see as I move that picture to the right, you can see that the text wraps around the picture. One of the things, what's a shortcut or a feature within Excel or within Word as well, if you hold your Shift key down when you drag a picture, it will lock that picture on that particular plane. So you can see if I move my cursor up and down, the picture stays right where I started. So if you don't use the Shift key, then as you're moving it, sometimes you're going to be moving it up and down and so on. Anyway, I want that picture to be aligned with the right margin, and I want the anchor to be positioned in front of the text, the Art Center Gallery. Okay, moving on to skill number 3, apply picture styles and artistic effects. And this is very similar to what we worked through with PowerPoint. So when you have a picture, you have the new menu tab called the Picture Tools, and within here you have all the options you saw before in PowerPoint. So remove background, correction, artistic effects, and that we're going to come back to those. Styles, which are pre-built picture effects, and so on. So we're going to click on the styles, and we're going to go down to this one called Perspective Shadow White. So you can see what it does. It puts a white border around your picture, and it puts a shadow down beside the picture. You're going to click back on the picture. I clicked off it just for whatever. I'm going to click on Picture Effects again, and here I'm going to click on Bevel. So what Bevel does is actually adds an effect to the border. I'm going to select the one called Angle, which is here, and it's difficult to see, but if you take a look at your picture now, it looks like the picture is like the border around the picture is kind of angled off. Okay, and then I'm going to click on it again. I'm going to go back to Picture Effects. I'm going to go down to 3D Rotation, and we want Perspective Contrasting Right. So there's Perspective Contrasting Right. And all of this I'm doing on the wrong picture. Sorry. Okay, so I'm going to come back. I'm going to go back to, this should have all been done down here. So again, let's just do it over again. I'm going to click here. I'm going to apply Perspective Shadow Right here. I'm going to apply the bevel to the frame, and I'm going to go to Picture Effects, 3D Rotation, and I'm going to select this one here, Perspective Contrasting Right. On the top picture, I am going to change where I had done the Perspective Shadow Right. I'm going to change that to Moderate Frame White Style, which is right here, Moderate Frame White. I'm going to change the shadow, so Picture Effects, Shadow, to Outer Diagonal Top Left. So in the outer group, diagonal top left, offset top left. Now notice that when I put this picture in, the title lost is no longer on the center, so I'm just going to use the arrow keys to move my picture down until the title goes back onto the center. Remember that when you want to move a picture on the screen, you can click and drag it, but sometimes to get very precise movement, it's easier just to make sure that it's selected so you can see the sizing handles, and then use your arrow keys to nudge it to where you want it to be. Okay, I'm going to go over here to Artistic Effects. I'm going to select the fourth one in, which is called Pencil Sketch. I'm going to set the picture border. Now the text says brown accent 3, but that picture color isn't available here, so I'll just pick orange accent 3. And remember, when you have theme colors, the top row colors are your colors, and then the 6 rows below that are different saturations on that color. So the first one down is lighter, 80%. So I'm going to select that one, and that's it. Okay, so that's skill number 3. Okay, skill number 4 is talking about tab settings. And tab settings are kind of a throwback. I remember when I first started school, I actually took typing on a typewriter, and if you wanted to line things up in lines, you used your tab settings. Now it's easier to do that with that table. You see the table that's on the screen there. It says classes, starting month, and description, and that's much simpler to use than tabs. But sometimes you can use tabs for small pieces of information that you want to create. Now, what I'm going to do, and you don't have to follow along here, but you can if you want, I'm actually going to do a Control-End to move to the end of the document, and then I'm going to do a Control-Enter to add a new page break, because I'm going to practice a little bit on tab settings, and I don't want it in my original document. So if you go back into my document, you see I have a page break here, which is the Control-Enter, or I could have done Insert Page Break to do the same thing. So on my new page, one of the things, you have to have your rulers visible. So if the rulers are not visible on your screen, click on the View tab and make sure you have a tick box in Ruler so that I can see the rulers across the top of the screen. Okay, now there are basically 4 primary tab settings. There's left tabs, which means that whatever text you type at that tab setting is going to be aligned to the left. There is center tabs, which means that if you have a center tab, when you start typing, it'll move one word to the left, one letter to the left, one letter to the right, and so on, so that when you're done typing, your text is centered on the tab setting. There's a right align, which means when you hit the tab, it will move your cursor to the right, and as you type, your words will go to the left so that your right margin is aligned. And there is something called decimal align, which is used for aligning decimal points. And then there's a couple of others that we're not going to worry about. If you take a look on the ruler, right above the vertical ruler on the left hand side, you can see a little letter L, and if I hover over top it, I can see the words left tab. If I click on that, it'll change to a center tab. If I click on it a third time, it'll change it to a right tab. And if I click on it a fourth time, it'll change it to a decimal tab. Then I'm going to get a bar tab, and I'm going to get a hanging indent, or first line indent, hanging indent, and I'm back to my left tab. Now, we're not going to have to use these, but this is the way you would normally set tab settings when you're working on Word at home. All right, because MyTLab asks for precise positioning on tabs, we're actually going to use the tab dialog box to create our tabs. But I'm going to show you how you can actually do it as well within here. So because I'm on a blank page, let me just show you. Right now I've got it positioned on the left tab. If I want a left tab, I can simply click in the ruler. So I'll click here just before the letter 1, and that will insert a left tab into my document. It's supposed to. There it is. Okay. And now when I hit the tab button, so I'm going to be here. Oh, what happened here? All right, I lost my tab. Let me put it back in. Okay. So now when I hit my tab button, it moves me to that left tab, and then as I type, my text is aligned on that left tab. All right. So now I'm going to change it to a center tab, and I'm going to click, let's say here, So now I have a center tab. So when I hit tab once, it's going to go to my left tab setting. When I hit it a second time, it's going to go to my center tab. So as I type, what it's doing is it's putting one to the left, one to the right, so that when I'm done, that word, the wording I have there, this is a center tab, is centered on that tab setting. I'm going to hit enter. Now I'm going to add a right tab. So I'm going to click again on the far left box, and now I have 3 tabs. Well, actually I have to position the tabs. So once I've created that, I simply have to click in the ruler where I want that tab to go. So now I have a left tab, a center tab, and a right tab. So I tab once, it goes to my left tab. I tab a second time, it goes to my center tab. And I tab a third time, and it goes to my right tab. Okay, I hit enter. I'm just going to add another row. Okay, so what you can see here is that I have a bunch of text within my document. Now one of the things to be aware of when you're working with tabs, when you add tabs to a document, those tabs are only in effect for any new text after you've added the tabs. So if I was to take a look here, so currently I'm positioned in this row here. The very last row in my document says left tab, center tab, right tab. And if I look at my ruler, I can see I have, and you probably, again, the tool that I'm using doesn't show cursor movement, but there's my left tab, there's my center tab, and there's my right tab. Now I'm going to move my cursor up back into my document a bit, and notice that all the tabs disappear. And that's simply because when you add tabs, those tabs are only in effect for new text that's added after you've added those tabs. And that's important because, of course, you don't want to have, if you have tab settings at a particular location in the document, if you add tabs someplace else, you don't want to change the existing ones you've already created. Okay, so when you add tabs, any new lines you create will have those tabs, will inherit them, but any existing lines will not. So if I want to have tabs in a certain spot in my document, I can add the tabs, type in my new text, and then when I move to the original text space, the tabs will disappear. If I'm creating a document, I would add the tabs where I want them, and then when I'm done, I would simply remove the tabs so that they're not in effect for any new text after that point. Okay, and let me just show you briefly what a decimal tab is used for. And by the way, to get rid of a tab, so I'm going to go back, I'm going to add a new row, but I don't want this left tab anymore. I can simply click and drag it off the ruler. And the same with the center tab, and I can do the same with the right tab, so now I have no tabs in place. I'm going to click once more to make this a decimal tab. I'll add a decimal tab here. Okay, so when I hit the tab button, it moves me to the decimal tab, and what a decimal tab is used for is to line up the decimal point on numbers. So when I type in numbers, it will treat it like a right tab until I hit the decimal point, and then it'll treat it like a left tab. So now as I type numbers, whoops, it just makes sure that my decimal points are lined up. Okay, so the other nice thing about tabs, I'm going to go back up to this line here, is that I'm going to highlight these 2 rows. I can then move my tabs and adjust the position of the text that's using those tabs. So I simply go to my ruler, click on the tab, and drag it to put it to a new location. Right? So it does give you some flexibility to work with data. Okay, all right, so I'm going to get rid of all the stuff that I just added here. So I'm going to go all the way back to where I added the tabs. Okay, so that puts me back to my document before I started dicking around in there. All right, so we're on skill number 4, set tab settings. What we want to do is in this location here, you can see in my document it says the hours of operation are, and I'm going to actually create a tab list to put in my hours of operation. So I'm going to, now this time I'm not going to use the ruler to add my tabs. I'm going to use the tab dialog box, which is probably the simpler way for you to do this going forward. Okay, so what I want you to do is to click in that blank paragraph in that space here, and now we're going to add the tabs. So I'm going to go back to my Home tab. I need to bring up the paragraph dialog box. So I can either click on the launcher to bring it up, or I can right click and select paragraph to bring up the dialog box. And notice at the very bottom there's a tab setting, so I'm going to click on tabs. So as you can see right now there are no tabs. So I want to put a left tab at 0.25 and a right tab at 3.5. So to do that I simply type 0.25. It's already set to a left tab, and I'm going to click set. And then I'm going to create a second one at 3.5. This one I want to be a right tab, so I'm going to click right, and I'll hit set. So now I have a left tab at 0.25 and a right tab at 3.5. I click OK, and you can see that those tab settings now appear in my ruler. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to enter some text. So I'm going on to skill number 5, enter text with tab stops. So I'm simply going to hit tab. I'm going to type in the word day, hit tab again. Whoops, missed one step, but all right, let me go back to this again. So I'm going to actually undo what I just did. What they also want is they want something called a dot leader on the right tab. So what a dot leader does is it fills the empty space between one tab and the next with some sort of a character. So you've seen this before where somebody, well, we'll show you. So now that I'm still at that same location, I'm going to bring up the tab dialog box again. I'm going to click on the right tab to make it active, and then I'm going to see down at the bottom here there's a thing called leader. So right now it's set to none. This is a dot leader, this is a dashed leader, and this is a line leader. So what a leader simply means is that it means that it puts whatever character you have there, it fills in the space from one tab to the tab that you're positioning it on. So I wouldn't put it on the first tab, because then what it would do is it would fill the space from the left margin to that first tab with dots. I don't want to do that. I just want dots from the first tab to the second tab. So on the second tab I apply the dot leader. All right, I'm going to click OK. I could do set to, but OK will do it. All right, so now what I'll do is I'll hit tab. I'm going to type in the word day, and I'll hit tab a second time, and you can see what it does is it fills all of that space with those dots. And I'll type in the word hours. Okay, I'm going to hit enter, tab, and I'm going to type Monday to Wednesday. Hit tab, type in my hours. So you can see what happens. A left tab, as I start typing, I type like normal. It types from going out to the right. But when I hit the right tab, it actually works backwards. And that means that allows the end character to be aligned with the right margin. I'm going to hit enter, tab, and I'm going to type Thursday to Friday, tab, noon to 8. Enter, tab, Saturday, tab, 11 to 5, enter, tab, Sunday, tab, closed. Okay, I'm going to bold my headings, so I'm going to go out here, I'm going to select the bold button to bold those. But now I don't want this big space after. And you can see again, if you look at the word day, you can see that there's that space below that. We talked about this last week. That's paragraph spacing. Each one of these lines in this is a paragraph, all right, because I have a paragraph marker at the end of every line. So what I want to do is I want to get rid of that paragraph spacing on the first 4 rows. I want to leave it on the last one so that there's a space after Sunday before the words the Art Center offers. To do that, I'm going to select the 4 rows that I want. I have 2 choices here. I could go to the paragraph launcher and I could get rid of this after to 10 point. But there is a shortcut. If I click on line spacing, you can see down at the bottom it says remove space after paragraph, which is the same as getting rid of that 10 after. So I'm going to click on that. Be aware that when you're doing your grader assignment, it doesn't matter which way you do it. So I could have simply, as I've done the first point, I could have gone to paragraph launcher, I could have gone to spacing after and changed that to 0. That would do the same thing as what we did here by clicking on line spacing and using the selection add. Now it said remove space because there were spaces there. Now it says add space, so I'm going to leave that alone. Okay. And again, if I select all of the text, I can move my tab settings on the ruler now. Just click and drag. You can see the line that goes down the page to show where it would be, and I can move those around to position my text differently if I wanted to. Now in this case, I don't want the dot leader on the first row, so I'm going to select that row. I'm going to go back to paragraph. I'm going to go back to tabs, and on the dot leader, or on the right tab, I'm simply going to say no dot leader on that row so that it disappears. Okay. All right, so that's skill number 5. So the rest of this lecture is about tables. So this, what you can see down here, is a table, and we've looked at tables, or have we looked at tables before? Maybe not. But in Word, a table is like in a way, it's like a very small Excel spreadsheet within your document. But the nice thing about tables is that a table is broken down into rows and columns. So these are rows, these are columns. All right, and each intersection of a row and column is a cell. So I've got a cell here that I've got the word class in, another one here, art history, drawing, and so on and so forth. And once you're in a table, you have a lot of formatting options that are available to you. Now the other nice thing about a table is that once you're typing into the table, when you hit the edge of the table, it automatically word wraps within that cell. If you take a look at the ruler at the top, you can see that it's actually treating this as if it was 3 little Word documents. Each one has a ruler, each one has I could put format boxes into there. I could add margins for those if I wanted to. God knows why you'd want to, but you can't. So the beautiful thing about this is if I was using tab settings and I wanted to get something like this survey of medieval to modern art to line up like that, I would have had to go tab, type art history, tab, type January and July, tab, type survey of medieval to modern, enter, and then tab, and then type art, period, right, to get it to line up like you can see here. So once you're working within a table, each cell, once you're hitting enter, or if you hit enter, it'll add another paragraph within that cell. To move between cells, you can use your arrow keys, you can click in a different cell, or you can use the tab button to move around. So if I'm in this cell, I want to move to the next one, I can simply hit tab, it moves me to the next cell, hit tab again, and so on, so I can move through the document in that way. Okay, so once I'm in there, I had a brand new table, a menu, or a tab called Table Tools, and it has a Design tab and it has a Layout tab. So the Design tab is how the table is going to look, and the Layout tab allows you to change the physical characteristics of the table. So we're going to spend the rest of the lesson talking about this. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is position in this table. So we brought this table in from that other diagram or Word document, and I'm going to show you later on how to create your own table. I'm going to click on the Design tab, and I have formatting options available to me here. So I'm going to go down to the List Table Styles, and I'm going to select this one here, List Table 3, nope, List Table 4, this one here, Accent 4. So when I do that, you can see that it changes my shading colors. So I've got the top row is got a border on it, and so on. So my first row, and if you take a look in the far left, you've got something called Table Style Options. So header row, right? You can see when I click on that, it gives me that bolded header row. First column, if I turn that off, it'll get rid of the bold on that first column. Last column would bold the last column. Banded rows gives you that different color on each row. So I'm going to leave it with header row turned on and banded rows turned on. I'm going to leave the rest alone. Okay. Now the other thing too, when you create a table, by default when you set up a table, it sets all your columns to be exactly the same width. Now you can see in this one here that the first column, this is classes and art history and that, doesn't really need to be as wide as say the last column, which has text in it. So what I would want you to be doing is when you're creating tables, I want you to just use the defaults. Just create the table, start typing information in, because you can always pretty it up and move it around and change things after the fact, which is what we're going to be doing right now. So in this particular case, once I've got all my text in, I'm going to go up to the layout command, and there's an option here. Now just be careful here. If you take a look, let's go across from left to right. So selects the table. Right, so I can select a cell, column, row, or select the whole table. View grid lines turns the grid lines off and on. We're going to come back to properties in a little bit. We are not going to use these draw options at all. Rows and columns, so this allows you to add new rows, delete rows, and so on. We're going to do that later. Split cells in a splitted table, we're not going to worry about in this course. What I want you to click on right now is auto fit. So I'm going to click on auto fit, and I'm going to click on auto fit contents. And what happens here is you can see that it automatically adjusts the size of the tables to fit the text that's in the table. So it's narrowed down classes, and it's narrowed down starting months, and it's widened description. Okay. The other options here, you can see cell size. That is the size of that individual cell, not the whole table, and that will become important to us in a bit. Distribute rows and distribute columns just allows you to automatically align or set the columns up to fit the width, and we're not going to worry about those. The alignment options here is how text is aligned in the cell. There's actually 9 versions, so you can assign the text to the top left, to the center, to the top right, middle left, middle, center right, bottom left, bottom center, bottom right. Text direction, you could actually change the direction of your text. You can have it go up and down, left and right, and so on. Cell margins, we're not going to worry about, and that's it. Okay, so once we've got all of that, the last component here is we're going to go back over here to properties and click on properties. So properties are the physical properties of that particular table. So right now you can see that by default when you create a table, it is going to go from the left margin all the way to the right margin. So we have a 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. So you have 8.5 inches across on the paper, and let's assume that you have margins of 1 inch on each side. So that would give you 6.5 inches from margin to margin. If I wanted to have that table kind of indented into the center of the table, what I can do is I can go into table properties, click on preferred width, and I can say let's set the table width to 6, and I'm going to center it. What that will do is give me a little bit more indentation on the left and the right. So when I click on it, you can see that it brings that table in. So it now takes 6 inches as opposed to whatever it was before, depending on the margins. Okay. Skill number 7 is to create a table. So we're actually going to create our own table down here under change fees or class fees as follows. I'm going to hit enter to add a new paragraph, and I'm going to go into insert, and here's the option for insert a table. So you can see what it shows me is a lot of boxes. So we want a table that's 2 columns wide by 5 deep. So you can see at the top it says 2 by 5. When I click OK, it creates that table. Now in this particular case, the table automatically goes from the left margin to the right. We're going to change this table later on so that it fits up beside the picture as opposed to below the picture, because it doesn't make any sense to be down where it is right now. But we're just going to get our stuff in there, and then we're going to clean it up after we've got it done. Okay. By the way, when you insert a table, you can say how many rows you want, but it's very easy to add new rows or delete rows, and we're going to do that as well. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to fill in some data here. So we're going to put in the heading, class fees, and I can use the arrow key to move down to the next row. I'm going to type my subheadings, group, and ages. I'm going to hit tab to move to the next row. Don't hit enter, because if you hit enter, it'll add a carriage return add a return into the cell. And we'll just follow what they've got in the textbook. So I'm going to type students, tab, 12 to 17, tab, then they say college students, tab, tab, so we're just not going to put an age in because we're going to delete that cell in a second, young adults, tab, 18 to 24. Okay. So skill number 8 is to delete and add rows. So what I want to do is I want to delete the row that says college students. So I'm simply going to select the row. So notice that as you move your cursor around, the little 4 arrows in the top left-hand corner, that's to select the whole table. If I want to select a row, I can move my cursor out to the left margin and select a particular row. And don't ignore that plus sign, that's to widen the height of a particular row. If I want to select a column, I can move my cursor above the column, so I get that little black arrow pointing down, and I can click and that will select the whole column. I can also do it by going up to the Layout tab and go on Select and say select a cell, select a column, select a row, or select the whole table. But it's simpler just to do it using the arrow keys. So what I want to do is I want to delete the column college students. So what I'm going to do is I can click on it, which will bring me up the delete box, and here I can say delete the row, or I could go to the Layout tab, go to delete, and delete the row. Okay. Now I'm going to add a row below adults. I'm going to click on young adult. So what I want to do is I want to add a row below, so I can do it from here. So in the Layout tab, I can say insert below, which will add a new row. I can type adults and type 25 to 59. But rather than doing it through the add rows option or insert below, I can simply hit on the, when you're in the last cell in a table, if you hit tab, it automatically adds a new row. So now I can type in here seniors and 60 plus. Okay. So now I want to add a new column because we actually don't, this is supposed to be our fees, right? So all we've got in here is the group and the ages. I actually need a third column for fees. So I'm simply going to click anywhere in the second column, and I'm going to go back up to the Layout tab, and I'm going to select Insert Right, which will add a new column to the right. And in here I can click on the second row, and I'm going to type in fee. And then I'm going to go down and I'm going to type in the values that I want. So I'm going to type $64, down arrow, $78, down arrow, $125, down arrow, and $38. And I'm going to go back up to the $64. I'm going to put a dollar sign and 2 spaces. And we're going to make it all look pretty now. Alright, so that's skill number 8. Skill number 9 is format text in tables. So what I want to do is I'm going to select that top row. I'm going to go up to design, and I have an option here called shading, and what that's going to do is going to add shading to that row. So I'm going to select, let's just select this row here. But you notice my text is actually darker than I want it to be, so I'm actually going to, and it's just normal text, so I can click on the Home tab. I can change the size, so I'll click to make it 12, and then I can click on my font color and I'll turn it to white. Okay, and on the second row I'm going to click, I'm going to bold it, I'm going to change my fill color. Well, let's see here, we're not going to do it that way. I'll change, they just want to change the font color, so I can do it. I could have still gone up here to design, gone to shading, maybe picked, say, that color there, and then I can change my font color to a different font color, which, well, that's pretty awful. I think best to leave it black, quite honestly. Okay. And I can do things like I can center, so that my headings are centered, and so on. So that's normal, just normal formatting. I want to select just from here down, So I'm going to select just my values. So I'm going to position my cursor in the cell so it changes to a little arrow pointing up. Sorry, let me just show you again. So when I position and I click and drag, it just selects those cells. I could have done the same thing by select and drag, click and drag, and I'm going to right justify those cells so that they stand out that way. And then I could, if I wanted to, and this is what we did on the first table, I could go to layout and I could click on auto fit. All right, so don't particularly like the way that looks. It's a little bit cramped as far as I'm concerned. So now I do have the option, so I'm going to click at the top of a row or of a column to select the column, or I could have, as I said, gone up here to select column. And I'm actually going to change the width of the columns themselves. So I'm going to make that first column 1.5, and I'm going to select the second column and I'm going to make that one 1.2, and I'm going to select the third column and I'm going to make that one 0.8. Okay, so notice what happened here. As soon as we changed the column widths, now there was space between the left margin and the picture, so it moved the table up beside the picture, which makes a heck of a lot more sense. Okay. Finally, what I want to do is I want my heading here, this word class fees, to be right across all of them. So I'm going to go up to, in the Layout tab, I'm going to click on Merge Cells, which is going to make those 3 cells into a single cell. And then I'm going to center my text, so I can do it from here, align top center, so that my text is centered in that cell. Okay, and finally what they want us to look at is changing borders a little bit. So I'm going to select the table, so I can do it from here, or I could go up to the select option, say select table. I'm going to go to design, and I have an option here called borders. And you can see the ones that are highlighted. All of those are the borders that are active. I'm simply going to turn off the one called inside vertical right here. Okay, and that, as they say, is a wrap. So we're done. Thank you very much, and one more after this.